Hey, and welcome to a new episode of Common Sense with Adam, where we're talking about all sorts of common sense around cents and dollars. Because while, 100% of us have some sort of experience with money, most of us have not taken the time to sort of get the basic finance education down, just the basics. We're not talking advanced, which is why I'm titling this show as really common sense as it pertains to money, because a lot of times these are things that we actually know of. We just don't stop in our tracks to think about what we know or what would we recommend someone we love to do. We kind of operate in sort of the same old, stuck in my routine and doing what I've always done. So today we'll be looking at a pretty interesting, I think, illustration of my own Roth IRA account, which I've started 10 years ago, so 2012. And I think having that real life history will further sort of support some of the facts that I really want to put across here. So I think you're really going to enjoy this one. But before we dive into that, for those who are new to what a Roth IRA account is, it's basically a retirement account. I think the best of its kind. At the end of the day, I say the best because all your earnings, so everything your money makes during the investment time, as well as all your withdrawals, as long as you do them after age 59, they're tax-free. And anything tax-free, anything with a tax shelter, I think is a gold mine. So my recommendation is for everybody always to take the $5,000 a year, $6,000 a year. That's generally been the cap or the max allowable contribution amount. So again, I opened this account in 2012. And I've maxed out the allowable contribution every year since then, except 2 of those years where I just forgot to make any sort of contribution. So there was literally nothing invested for 2 out of the 10 years. So first, let's look at the 10-year performance. And at first, it might not seem that exciting, but please bear with me. So we're looking at, as you can see, we started in 2012, and every year I contributed $5,000 to $6,000, maxing it out. And here we are in 2022. Current portfolio is $87,000, and 38K is the return on my investment. So that's basically a 12% net. Now looking at a 5-year, so 5 years we're at 13%, 3 years we're at 15%, 1 year we're at 4%, and year to date I'm actually in a negative of $6,800, but everybody is in a negative more or less this year. So the current balance is at almost $88,000 year to date, of which we know 38 is the return on investment. So basically, I put in, on average, $5,500 times 8, because we know I contributed 8 years out of 12. So I put in $44,000, and these $44,000 netted to me a $38,000 return on investment. So the current balance is $88,000. And over the last 10 years, that's, $5,000 per year times 10 years on average. We are at $50,000 is what I put in. So my $50,000 essentially made me $38,000, which sounds okay. But let's look at something that gets real interesting. So let's look at a basic investment calculator and sort of illustrate these numbers and project into the future, because I think you'll find this pretty interesting. So the initial investment this is, by the way, through nerdwallet.com, the compound interest calculator made to measure exactly this. The initial investment, I could not bring it down to less than 100. So I'm going to keep it at 100. The annual contribution is, again, on average, $5,500. Started at $5,000. Today's max is $6,000. So for the purpose of this, I'll use 55. So now let's look at a 10-year term. So on average, let's use a 10% return. So that essentially puts us at $99,000 as a return on investment. Again, I did not put in 2 out of the 10 years. So this more or less reflects my figures, but not quite, although it's pretty close. So the $55,000 invested in this illustration over the course of 10 years would have earned $45,000 essentially. So it's $55,000 we start with. $45,000 is what is the return. So the two numbers together is $100,000, which is the future balance here in this illustration of $99,000. And here's where it gets interesting. So now if I change this to 20 years, so the same $55,000 that I invested the first 10 years, I'm now investing the next 10 years. So my return on investment is now not 55 plus 55, which is 110,000. It's actually 360. So think about that. It almost doesn't make sense, but that is the beauty, the power of compound interest. And it gets even more interesting at 30 years, to where, again, 55 for the first 10 years investment, 55 for the second, 55 for the third, so I'm at $165,000 contribution for 30 years. But the net return to me is $1 million. So again, I put in $165,000, that's all that's mine. And then the beauty and the power of compound interest literally turns that money to over $1 million. So again, someone in their at 18 years of age can open this account. 30 years later, they're 58, and they would have $1 million in their account. And then it gets even more interesting because technically you can't touch the money tax-free until it's 59. So let's go to a 40-year term. And we are literally at $3 million. So the way compound interest works, it's basically unfair. Like it starts very, very slowly, but the longer the term is, the harder the money works for you. I think that's the best way to explain it. So now we know 40 years later, 55 plus 55 plus 55 plus 55, we are at 210,000, 220,000. So that $220,000 gave me $3 million 40 years later. And yeah, that's a lot of years later, but at the end of the day, it's still going to be a lot of money, which is why I recommend this to anybody and everybody, because this $3 million that you get to draw 40 years later is all tax-free. You're not paying any interest on that $780,000. Literally all of that is tax-free to you, which is why I recommend this account above every other. I hope you found that illustration useful, helpful. I hope you found it convincing to where you will actually set aside the money, whether it's monthly or annually, but do your very best to max it out every year. Your future self will thank you for it. Hope you found this helpful. Thank you again for tuning in. It's been a minute since I got on here. Life got a bit busy, but I am still devoted, I'm still dedicated and very committed to wanting to put out more and more content. So please be sure to hit subscribe, hit like, share with a friend. Anything you do helps. And your help is, as always, greatly appreciated. Shoot me a note, leave some comments below if you'd like. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching.